Hey PBA, Heidi Allen, founder of the Positive People Army. How is everyone today? It is Positive Word Wednesday. It's actually one of my most favorite days of the week because Positive Word Wednesday is about storytelling. And a lot of you know that I am definitely a lover of stories. I love them to death. I love to tell stories. I love to share stories. And of course, I wrote a book called Stories Finding Your Wings. So stories are one of my favorite things. I think it's the easiest and most profound way that we actually learn because we remember the stories because they've affected us psychologically, emotionally, sensory, like everything is touched. And that's why we remember them, and it's easier to implement the lessons and morals and values that are in stories. So today is a pretty powerful story because our Positive Word Wednesday today is all about integrity. And integrity is such an important word. It's such an important value that we have as human beings. Anyone will definitely attest when they say that when they meet someone, a leader, anyone that's in any sort of leadership role, and they have integrity, that it is you respect that individual above and beyond anyone else. So I'm going to tell a story about integrity, and this story has been told several different ways to get the message across. So I'm bringing it in to today because I've originally told this story before, but I've told it from a place of like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Well, I'm kind of bringing it fast forward into the future, and I'm going to tell the story so you can relate to it. So this particular story takes place in a business. It's a business. It's a very large business. It's actually a huge corporation. And the man that owns this particular corporation is kind of getting to the end of his days. You know, he's been running the company for so many years, and now he knows within the next year he's going to be hitting 80 years old. So he's been running this company for all this time as the CEO. And because he doesn't have any children and he doesn't have anyone to leave the business to, he decides that he's going to give this incredible opportunity to take over his role to one lucky young individual that is working within the company. He's very much a person, and he's, kind of run the company the majority of his life from a place of always giving anyone and everyone an opportunity to learn, to grow, to move up in the company in any way that he can. So he decides this kind of meets with his values, that to give this opportunity to someone that's young, maybe with a young family, that this would change their life. So what he does is he calls in all the young executives that are in his company, and he calls them into a giant boardroom, and he tells them all his plan. And what he says is he's going to put them through a test. He's going to put them through a test to see how they actually go about what this test is going to be, how they, conduct themselves, who they are, their abilities, everything. And they're like, okay, like they're thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to get this very cool project, an amazing project where we're going to be able to use all the knowledge we gained in university and all of the experiences that we've gained, working within this company. And all of a sudden, his financial advisor comes in and he hands each young executive an envelope. And inside the envelope, he tells them all, is one seed, a seed that you plant. And all of them are very confused by this package that they've just been given. And then the CEO tells them all his instructions. He said, all of you have been given a seed to plant, one seed. And I'm giving you all 6 months from today to grow that seed. I want you to plant it in the soil. Pick the pot of your choice, whatever you think it is. And I want you to cultivate it and grow it and talk to it and water it and make sure it gets sun. Do everything in your power to grow this seed. And in 6 months from now, you are all going to come back into this boardroom and I'm going to see what you have done. I'm going to see the growth that you have succeeded at with your plant. So all of you go and have fun with your seeds. So there was one young executive that was in the room, and he was a little bit quieter, shy. He was a little bit more reserved than the rest of the young executives who were all like, ho, 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 you know, fist bumping and chest bumping, that they were going to get this position. They were going to become the CEO. They were going to, grow the greatest plant. Whereas he really didn't know much about plants, to tell you the truth. So he went home and he told his wife, his young wife, the story. And he said, I have to plant this seed and I have to grow it. And in 6 months, I have to take it back. And the one that has done the best job, that the CEO feels has done the best job, is going to be named the CEO. And she said, this is an incredible opportunity, but very unusual, the test that you've all been asked to do. So she helps him plant the seed, and, they pick this really pretty pot, and, they get fertilizer, and they find the perfect window in their house that gets the greatest sun. And, he diligently over the next few days, is watching the seed, and he's, putting the fertilizer in that he has to, and he's watering it, and he's turning it in the window to constantly get the sun from every single angle. About a week goes by and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened to our young, quiet, reserved executive. And he goes into work, and all of the other men, all of the other young executives start bragging about how they've just started to see a little bit of growth with their seed. It's just started to pop up, and they're going to get the position. They are going to have this incredible opportunity to be the CEO and run this multi-million-dollar corporation. And our poor, reserved young executive, there's nothing. So then another few weeks goes by, and now it's a month, and still nothing in our reserved, conservative young executive's pot. And yet, at work, all of the other men just keep talking about their plants, and they've got all these photos on their phone, and they're emailing and texting it to each other and showing off what their plants are and the growth that they've achieved. And yet, our poor young guy that's, quite quiet and really isn't talking to anyone has seen nothing. So 1 month turns into 2 months, and then 3 months, and then 4 months, 5 months. There is still no growth in his pot. And yet every other person that has been asked to do this test has had growth. So finally the day comes, 6 months to the date. They have all been called that they have to go in to the executive boardroom. Now, our reserved young executive has decided that he's not even going to show up. He told his wife, I'm not taking my pot in. This is embarrassing. It's humiliating. I was asked to grow a seed. What is wrong with me? He says to himself. What is wrong with me? Why can't I just do this task? And his wife says, listen, you did everything you were asked to do, and you must fulfill this task. You must take your pot in, even with absolutely no growth. So they all go to the boardroom. They all go to the boardroom. And as he walks in, I have to tell you, his self-confidence, whatever it was to even walk into that boardroom, has now shrunk to nothing. Because every single other person in that boardroom has not just plants, they have bushes and flowers and mini trees. It's been 6 months growing this seed. It's unbelievable. the plants that they have just shown up with. And so our poor, young, shy, conservative executive sits at the back of the room, kind of trying to put his sports jacket over the pot so no one can see. But there's a lot that have seen that there's nothing in his pot. There's not a stem, not a leaf, not a flower, nothing. So the CEO comes in and he starts looking around the room and he says, my gosh, do we have growth? Look at all of these plants. All of you have proven that you can definitely grow a plant. Wow. And then out of the corner of his eye, he sees our young, shy, conservative executive sitting at the back of the room, kind of shielding his pot. And he says, young man sitting at the back there, show me your pot. So he moves his jacket and he shows his pot that has nothing in it. And the CEO, I get so emotional at this story because it's so amazing. The CEO tells his financial advisor, go get that man. He brings this young executive to the front of the room. And he says, what happened? And the young man doesn't want to answer the CEO. I mean, my gosh, he's being, called out in front of everyone for his failure. And he says, I am so sorry, sir, but I did everything you asked me to do. I planted this seed. I fertilized it. I watered it. I put it in the sun. I did everything you asked me to do, but my gosh, it just wouldn't grow. And the CEO said, I see. And yet you still decided to come today with a pot with no plant. And the young executive said, yes, I did. I mean, it was the honest thing to do. And so the CEO said, I would like to announce that this young man is the new CEO. And the rest of the room gasped. They gasped. They were like, what? How can he be the new CEO? He didn't grow anything. And the CEO said, you see, all of the seeds that I gave all of you 6 months ago to the day were boiled seeds, which means they were dead. They would never grow. Not one seed that I handed out would ever grow. And yet, out of all of you, there was only one man who stuck to his integrity and was honest and had the morals and values to let it be what it is and then show up here today and admit it. That is a leader. All of you went out and got your own seeds and your own plants when you saw there was no growth. You see, PPA, the story is so powerful because integrity is what happens when no one is looking. And there are so many times in our lives where we know what the right thing to do is, but we get caught up in life sometimes. And yes, we are human. We get caught up in life and we follow the crowd, or we don't want to say anything because it may be embarrassing or humiliating. But in these moments in life, these tests, and just like that young executive who was tested in that moment with a trick, I might add, but life does the same thing to us. Life does the same thing. It gives us these moments where even if it's not the popular choice, we have to come and speak from a place of integrity and honesty. And we may feel embarrassed or humiliated, but when we always conduct ourselves from that place, great things happen. I always say that's karma for you. Listen, I want you to remember about this incredible human being, this young executive, because you are all that young executive. And there are going to be so many times where you're at work and something goes wrong and it's hard to admit it. It's hard to say. But when you do, you are coming from a place of integrity, and that is respected. When you come from a place and you lie and you make excuses or you do things because in the moment it may feel a little better because you don't want to go down that path of maybe you could get in trouble. Maybe there will be conflict, whatever it is. When you get found out in the end, like all of these other executives got found out, what happens then? You lose all respect from people. So it's your choice. It's your choice, PPA. You can show up from a place of integrity and honesty, and I will promise you, respect will always follow. Not to mention, my gosh, it just feels so much better. Okay, PPA, I hope you enjoyed that story. So sorry I get so emotional with these moments of people, these courageous, beautiful moments. And even though they're stories, they affect you because that's who we all are. Have a great day. Happy Positive Word Wednesday. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining me.